What's up, everybody? It's Professor Black Ops. I got a special friend. I've been knowing him a long time. I've been in this game a long time, so I want to introduce him. Get my Google homie in the house, Dave. So I'm go ahead and introduce yourself, Dave.
Hello, hello. Good to see you, my friend. It has been a while. Name's Dave Roundtree. I am a account executive at Google, covering Google security amongst many other things. Pleasure to be here, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you for
That's
having me.
cool. I always thought about Shark. That's cool. Charlotte, Texas, there hot. We met when you worked for $1 billion company. I did a security view. Woo, that's about 15 years ago, maybe. That's been a minute.
Yeah, yeah, it goes back a little ways. Yeah, my previous life.
Yeah, you done moved on to bigger and better things, man. So just validate each other. So like I said, he was bringing a $1 million product in, and I was doing a security review, and we're gonna get into that. Sometime when the vendor comes in, PBO actually does a security review. I got somebody to vouch for me today, so that's what I do in real life. So
Absolutely. That's what you kept us honest for sure.
oh no, that's good. The only thing is, and we'll talk about that later. I was like, man, I should have went into sales because now security got to help the vendors, and I'm like, I need to be on the sales, man. Get some of that you and Chuck money, man.
Yeah, sales is an interesting side of the business. I've enjoyed it for a long time now.
I just for real, I'm gonna take it out there, and we always branch out. I just never really thought about getting into sales. I just thought it was just up and down. So I just never
Yeah.
something. But then, the large agency I was working for, I always help the vendor get in, and they get paid, and I get zero. Even though you gave me a nice lunch, though. Shout out to the nice lunch you got me that one time.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, sales is something a lot of people don't think about getting into. They think about just the technology, getting deep into technology. And you can actually do a little bit of both, right? Be technical sales where you do know the technology, but you're still on the sales side for, a large vendor, small vendor. There's different aspects of it. So I always enjoyed meeting people like yourself because you keep us honest. You know your stuff, and you are definitely doing everything you can for the organization that you work with.
Shout out to the man Wayne Water. He putting on the barbecue this weekend. I appreciate that, man. But so tell me a
Nice.
little bit about your background. We never really talked about your background, told that, where you started and how you really got into the game.
Yeah. So I've been in this game almost 30 years in the IT industry. Started back when they would computers were just starting to get PCs were just starting to get networked. So I started at a small IT support company. Came out of high school, went in and start working as a kind of like an intern, paid intern, and they trained me. So I start working with PCs and PC maintenance. And at that time, they were standalone. An office would have maybe two PCs in it, right, and the rest were typewriters. So I was working those PCs after getting training and basically just kind of worked my way through the industry, getting more and more complex roles and complex responsibility. Moved, started off and obviously focused on desktop, then moved into the server world and networking world, and then finally into security. But yeah, it's been 30 years since I started in the IT industry.
Yeah, I think that's what I got, and I think I got 30 plus and a little bit now. Like you said, the weird thing is, I tell people, shout out to time. Time go by quick, man. You think it's gonna be a long
Yeah.
time? I'm like, man, I probably would do it a little different, but you think it's gonna be a long time, and because I tell young people a lot of time, they're like, oh, 6 month certification, or you're in school 2 years or something. I'm like, dude, that's gonna be a blink in your life, man.
That's right.
What's your take on that? It's gonna be a
Yeah,
blink in your life.
it's quick. It goes by fast. I think about some of the certification I've got over the years. Now, some of them I've had, 10, 15 years. Just at the time, you're like, oh, I got to get that cert or I got to study for this. And you just have to keep going. And before you know it, you've got it and you can just keep building your career and moving on. I'm a big believer in continuing education, continually keeping up with things, even if you have the job that you want or the jobs you were trying to get and will get into a certain career path. You always want to continue to build up your brand, build up your value, and keep your knowledge fresh because you're going to run into guys like you who, super sharp, know their stuff, and you better know your stuff too, or you're gonna get kicked out of the organization. But seriously, you got to keep up with that and just take the time, to invest in yourself and keep your knowledge fresh.
The growth of technology, different programming. I'm sure we'll delve more into cloud security and be on-prem. I mean, you like me. I remember when Novell came out and hell, networking. So,
That's right.
technology's
Yeah.
moving. I'd say technology's like 5 times. It's stopping for nobody. You got to keep up.
Yeah. If you don't keep up with it, it's gonna pass over you. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably one of my only regrets is you got the CISP. Me and Jan, who I'm gonna have on the channel, I missed it by 6 and I didn't go back to take it, man. Now I'm finally like, man, I got to get my
Right.
CISSP. I was like, I should did that
Yeah.
15 years ago, man.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It's a monster test, and it's funny because some people, like yourself, the information, but just actually sitting down and testing. A lot of times people don't test well, or might have lost focus that day on the test, but they know their stuff. But it's just one of those things where I try to be really diligent about keeping it. I got my CISSP was 2006, I think. That's where
Wow.
most people didn't even know what CISSP was. But yeah, it's definitely given me a lot of credibility. Is
Yeah.
it pushes. And also, you have those certs where you have to continue to get those continuing education credits. It
Mm.
forces you to keep studying and keep looking at new technology. Because I do not want to go back and take that test again. I think that
Oh,
test
I
was
know.
almost 3 hours. So
I know,
so I
man.
do my credits and continue to keep up with it. So that's another thing that keeps your knowledge fresh, because you know that you got that push. I got the CCSP, the Certified Security Cloud Professional, um, going back in 2019, and that's another one that's in order to continue to keep it fresh. I take the credits, take the education and classes and stuff. So that's another thing that pushes you, because otherwise you may get complacent if you're not in a job search mode. Right? You got a job, you kind of can lay back, and some jobs don't require you to get a cert. But I always tell people, whether they require you or not, get it and keep the bar high for yourself. Absolutely.
No, fact. Shout out to Before the Billions. That's one of my young homies out of Atlanta. He's doing
Nice.
a big engineer. Definitely coming up, man. I'm great
Excellent.
passion torch. I only got about 10 more years left. Nah, but,
Very
but the
nice.
weird thing though is, you were in the federal space. And we'll talk about that. I was in the federal space. A lot of those federal jobs, the 8570, they want you to have a CISP or
Right.
CISA. Some of them you got to have it to have that type of federal job too. So as I think
Yeah.
about, getting back in that space, I'm like, I got some, because the weird thing, like you said, I mean, like you said, out at you is I know my stuff. I got CISSPs calling me, asking me questions. Five
Yes.
of them can't get past HR on a lot of those. So
Yeah. That's right. That's the thing, and that's very true. You have the practical knowledge, experience, but a lot of times the gatekeeper wants to see that cert, and that's why it's good, especially while you're in a role where you're gaining practical experience, to go for those certs, because it's more difficult trying to get a cert while you're not currently when you don't have a job that you can practice what you're learning. So I would say, even like it's going back to, even if it's not required, make sure you jump on it so you can get it. There's there's different ways into your organization. A lot of times you may come into an organization in a position or a level a little bit lower that doesn't require that, and then you work your way up in the organization, get the CISSP while you're on the inside of the organization or the company or the agency. But yeah, ideally, you're trying to get it while you have a role that you can have practical experience and keep applying what you're learning, for sure.
yeah, but we both been in the game long enough where we can come up with scenarios to help us practice and study. Like I was on a
Yeah,
bench for a while, so I actually got like 4 AWS certs. I'm like, I got to get ready for the cloud in it, But I was like, I need to get some cloud certs to, like you said, kind of validate me. So I kind of
yeah.
picked, AWS, but we know Google right there, and we're gonna get right in, to the into Google.
That's right.
So, let's see. So what current at your current job?
What'd you say? I'm sorry, I missed it. What'd you say?
What's your current? What do you do at your current job
Oh, currently,
right
yeah.
now? What's your
So
current?
I am I'm at Google Cloud. I'm an account executive at Google Cloud, and in full transparency, here representing myself. This is just me and POB. Making making the conversations. But I been at Google for 3 years, and work with customers and organizations with security and things like data analytics, artificial intelligence. So it's kind of across the scope of Google Cloud, but I am focused all on cloud technology these days, which is nice. I get to really focus on some of the newer technology and the innovation side of technology with my clients. So it's been good. It's been different. Like I said, I go back 30 years, and um, the previous role I was at Oracle before I was at Google for almost 7 years, and that was a mix of cloud and on-prem technology, and that was a security focused role.
Mhm.
So how I met you, some years
Yep,
ago,
yep.
10 or more years ago, and that was focused on security around database security, encryption, and a few other things around cloud security. But this role is, a little more wide open and focused on the portfolio of Google Cloud products.
Yeah, and I just want to rewind and I'll have you chime in on that. All my past roles, like you said, with databases, and they all build up for the cloud because all those skills really they just took them on prem in the cloud. So when I went
Yep.
to the cloud, I don't think I really learned anything new. It was just a little different. Like
Right.
on
Yeah.
prem, I can't magically spin up 400 servers in the cloud. I can hit a button and I can spin that up
Right.
dynamic myself without putting in tickets. So what's your thought, Pat? I always tell people, especially young people, your skills gonna stack if you learn the correct things. Like you said, we did the database, web
Yeah.
servers, sneaker net. So all those skills, you just move them into the cloud. And they just different, right? So and
I agree
things
with
are a
you.
little more automated. What's your thoughts on that?
You're absolutely right. A lot of your skill sets with because you got database on prem or in a data center, and then you got that database that's in the cloud. A lot of your same principles about database management and hygiene and security still apply. What you find is some of the terminology is different, some of the
Right.
mechanisms to enable things a little bit different. But network is networking, whether you have on somebody else's pipes or you on the data pipes and network cards and all that stuff on-prem. You still got to configure IP addresses. You still got to configure VPNs and interconnects. And so always look at anything that if you're currently in a role that's on-prem, all those things can translate into cloud technology. Really, the challenge is just getting familiar with the different terminology and some of the nuances that cloud brings, like private and public cloud and interconnects and different things that are unique to the cloud. But that gap is not that big as someone may think it is if they've dealt with just on-prem or they work in a data center or something like that. Because at the end of the day, cloud is nothing but a bunch of data centers that somebody else manages, right? So
Yeah.
Google, Amazon, they all this. There's still data centers, physical locations with racks and racks of servers. They just simply are, you paying somebody else to do it for you.
Yeah. The other thing too is, and I tell people, even when you go in the cloud, especially as a big organization, it's still silo. Like when I work, when I'm in the cloud, I can spin up servers. But when you work for a large organization, they're not going to let you do that. You have to put a ticket in. So, right?
Right.
So a lot of stuff, it's at a certain level still the same, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe they'll let you spin up some small, cheaper servers, but a lot of stuff you still got to put tickets in. You still got to get
Yeah.
supervisor approval. You still
Oh
got,
yeah. Yeah.
a
Still
lot
got
of
change
these.
management. Yeah. Change management still, and sometimes a little bit more change management because whatever you spin up, there's going to be incur a cost, and most likely.
Nice.
So, unlike if you go and when I used to work in a data center, we had free servers sitting around. We could
Mm-hmm.
play with them, hook them up to the network, and long as we was isolated and had them secure, we could, play with them because it didn't cost. It's just my time. It wasn't
Right,
costing my
right.
company anything. Now, you spit up some virtual machines. There's a bill coming.
Facts, facts. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's one big deal too. And I'm talking about a little bit in the channel. And you security is the governance part. A lot of people forget about governance because people don't
Right.
think about that. But when you get in the cloud, like you said, you start spinning up stuff or or your database get too big, you can easily get a $4 or $5,000 bill. Like, oop, I
That's right.
spent the wrong database up, right? So your governance got to be a little tighter when you get in the cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely. And there's ways to, companies have a lot of times they have certain amount of credits where they can spend stuff up and don't have to pay, or they pay a certain premium to have a certain amount of services. But yeah, by and large, you need to have clearance before you're spending things up. And the cloud has a lot of controls even to prevent
Mhm.
people from doing that. So you may
Mhm.
find, you can't play around with cloud as much, as you could in a data center.
No, you're right. I've been working on it. I got one of the security certs in the cloud, like you said. One of the things is governance. This department can only spin up this small, VM server.
Yeah,
Anything bigger than that, they got to get approval for, right? Because that's the governance. 'Cause like you
right.
said, you don't want them bills to sneak up. See, I don't think you. I do know somebody got 42 certs, but I don't think it is because it's all learning now. Now I think you can waste your time. A part of that is, but you always learning.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I had a colleague back. I was at Microsoft for 15 years, prior to Google and Oracle, and I had a couple colleagues that had all kind of letters, behind their name. Right? It was just you're talking about 9, 10, 12 certs, and it just gets to a point where I think you should have the search for the role you're targeting or the role that you want to go for. And I would even suggest if you've been in around a long time, and some people test extremely well, so it's
Hmm.
nothing for them to get a cert. I had a colleague, he would study maybe 3 months and he can get whatever cert he wanted, and that's why he had all these certs. But that was the thing, he loved to study, he loved the test taking and the challenge, and he was very good at it. But I will say, at any given role, he probably only used 2 or 3 certs at a time. So you get where you have more certs than the role that you're currently going for. For instance, having a CISSP, well, then you don't need a Security Plus and a CISSP, right? So having both of those is kind of overkill. So there's different scenarios like that. You have, you might have to be ITIL certified. Well, then you need to be also certified on another, methodology around program management, project management. So you just have to think about what are the roles calling for, and to make sure I cover that. Because I would say from a company's perspective, they're only looking for a couple of certs. And if you have too many, it looks like, why does he have so many certs or she have so many certs? Why is it so broad? And I would even say, if you going for role, just put down the search. Don't even list all the search you have, and just put the search that are going to be applicable to the role. But good question. And like I said, sometimes comes down to how much time are you having to pay for those certifications yourself out your pocket. If you had the time, then that's your time, right? You might like to study and build that knowledge, but I would just be careful on how much you're also spending on acquiring all those different certs. Because any given job, I would say probably 3 certs max is what you're going to actually use, unless you're with a consulting company or something where you are changing, roles or changing focuses and all that kind of stuff.
No,
That's
that's
my
true.
my take.
No, that's true. The other question part of that is, can you overqualify yourself? You think if you get too many certs?
Um, Overqualified. I think you get to a point where you can bring some negative attention. I do know that colleague. He used to get questions about, why do you have so many certs? And this, for me, when I'm going for a job interview, I don't want any negative connotation at all, or any kind of questioning. So that's why I said, if you do have, an abundance of certs, I would just only list the ones that are applicable for that role, so you avoid that perception about, why do you have so many certs here? Because it can backfire on you. But um overqualification, I would simply say, tune your resume for the role you're going for. Tool, the search, tune down the search you're listing, so that only thing they see is what's relevant to the job, and you don't have to list, everything you've done and everything That'll come out a little bit verbally in the interview, but you
Mhm.
don't have to state that, on the resume. In my personal opinion.
No, I think that was that's
Yeah.
gems dropped by my man Dave. He dropping gems. I didn't think of that. Like you said, you can. I never thought about that. Especially when people ask you questions, just give them the search they need for that job. So you know, like you said, give them something to talk about if it's too negative. The thing I see sometime is a lot of people have searched and can't do the job because taking the test is different
Right.
than rolling your sleeves up and getting dirty, and you got to spin up your VM, set up your auto scaling groups, or spin up a cluster of something. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So you can get the perception, oh, you're just out getting a lot of search, because what will happen is a good interview, a good company, and this is any company, they're going to start asking questions on those different certs, right? And it just, to me, it takes away from the current role that you're trying to get. So the focus really needs to be what certs, and then beyond the search, what have you done in that area, and really focus on that. You and I have been around for a long time, so typically we're talking about what we've done and not so much, the certification. But there's some roles, like to get past HR, that recruiter, they want to check that box that you have. The same thing is with college. College degree, a bachelor. Some you can't even apply unless you have a bachelor's degree. Now
Yeah.
they may be missing out somebody with 15 years of experience, deep applicable experience, but if you don't have a bachelor's degree, you can't get to the door. So do you have to really kind of look at what roles you're going for? And sometimes you get into an organization in a different role and then work your way to what you want as well. But yeah, do you have to be careful at too many certs that don't that aren't backed by practical experience or actual job experience for sure.
Yeah, and that's really it. The experience a lot of times is actually doing it, and
Hmm.
I don't know. To me, that's kind of missing a lot of times, right? Until you actually get the job. But sometimes it's hard to get the job to get the experience, right? That's always the
Yeah,
age old catch 22.
yeah. JM has a good point about different technologies, different certs. Now, I will say, if you focus your career on cloud, which I think most people should these days in technology, if you had a Google cert and an Amazon cert, Microsoft cert, I think that's great, right? Because then you're walking in, like these companies with multi-cloud
Mhm.
strategies, you can speak to each of those, right? And not to just limit those three, Oracle certification. So if you're going to or targeting a company that has a multi-cloud strategy, yeah, absolutely, having multiple certs in those different clouds would be a good thing and advantageous for you. I would just I would say the flip side of that is, if you have cloud certifications and desktop hard A plus certification, desktop hardware and network certifications and Cisco certifications, and the list goes on. That's when you start to kind of stretch it thin, because there's not going to be any role, right, that you're doing all of those. So I would say, if it's in cloud, get the ones you want for cloud. And if you're targeting networking, look at Cisco and Palo Alto, and like different those security certs and training, because you're still in your niche within technology.
No, that's definitely true. Let's see. Let's
Good
see.
question so far, though.
Oh yeah, my audience, they most of them are tech or trying to get into tech,
Yeah,
so
sharp.
they trying to get there. Yes, I like the performance based questioning and learning. That's my. Let's see what
Hmm.
else I had on there. So I guess with the cloud, I always tell people, you think the cloud's gonna be less people because it's more automated. You think it's gonna need more people, less, more.
Yeah,
I think since it's a shortage, right? You're not really, you know, um, messing that up. But so I think right now, you the automation is, making it easier to spin stuff up, making it,
yeah.
easier for companies. So I don't think you're firing a lot of people right now. But
Yeah, and
what's
this
your thoughts
again,
on that?
these are my personal opinions and expressions, but I think you'll find people in IT just repurposed for different functions, right? So you do have a lot of automation. You do have AI has been it's been used a lot, as you know, for security. So your the security command center and security operations center, your SOCs, are changing because AI is doing a lot of that stuff that people used to, have to watch a screen and look at logs for. But I think the roles are just repurposed to other things. And there's a gap of people in security, right? There's a need for people to get in security today. There's a huge gap. So while cloud is taking certain functions away from your old school IT jobs, they are enabling other jobs and other careers and other roles that people can do. So I don't think there'll be a decrease. I think there'll just be a shift, in my personal opinion.
No, I definitely agree with that. And like you said too, is and you can tap in on Google is the cloud, the big cloud vendors are becoming. You can't look through 6 petabytes of logs with your eyes, anyways, right? And you're looking for
No, no,
TPTs and MITRE attacks and all that.
yeah,
So you're gonna need some kind of automation to do that,
sure,
right? So I think that alone, you couldn't look at that by hand anyway or by eye
right.
anyway. It's just it's too big. Somehow you gotta script that and make that a little easier.
Yeah, the volumes are much larger than they ever used to be. People are doing more and more with data, streaming and data analysts gathering, information to, analyze from previous transactions for customers and so on. So yeah, just the level of AI, level of data is much larger than it ever used to be. So, and just people are doing so much more. Um, Reaching out to the customers as well as presenting data, remotely and cross. So all that stuff is the amount of networking and data analysis and data sending and receiving, all that stuff for all companies has really increased over the last, I'd say, 10 to 12 years for sure.
Yeah, like you said, the amount of data is just like you said is astronomical. And two is
Yeah.
I think they're making it much easier for smaller companies to come online and do it. But from a
Yeah.
security perspective, everybody's online. Most people ain't got a security infrastructure, security background. So you got these little companies that are taking credit cards that have no idea what
Right.
they're doing. What's your thoughts on that? I think it's making the pie bigger, but it's making the pie less secure.
I think a lot of your small companies is like we got to get out there first, right? We got to get out there quick. We need to get online. We need to enable our services. And it's like, okay, then we do the security review later. Fortunately, a lot of them will get burned because they get out there so quick, so loose without getting, having the proper security policies and security reviews. And same thing with even some products. People put their apps and their products out there because they want to get it in the App Store, get it out there on, the Google Play Store. And it's not locked down properly. And they think, well, we'll go back and do that. We just want to get out there, get the revenue coming in, and then we'll have money to pay for a security review or security consulting. And that's just, as you know, the wrong way to look at that. That security has to be from the ground up and at the very beginning. And then it ultimately saves you a lot of money in the long run and keeps your product up. So it's a greater uptime, no loss of data, no chances of denial of service attacks and data breaches, and I mean the list goes on of doing things first. And you build a house. This is an illustration I always use. You build a new house. You put that security system in as the house being built. You don't live in the house for a year, 2 years, and say, "Well, I'm gonna wait till I get a security system." No, that brand new house that you love, you're gonna make sure you have a security system as it's being built the day you move in. People need to treat their business the same way. Add that security as you're building it, so from day one it's there.
But people features make money, not security though. So I mean, you've been in Silicon Valley, you don't work with startups. They trying to get the features out because they trying to get to a
Yeah,
million users, a million subscribers, a
yeah,
million widgets because that's how you get your VC funding. That's how you get your VC capital. They don't worry
right,
about security till they about to make money, right? So everybody's trying to make money, right?
right.
So what's your thoughts on that? That's what I usually see when I'm out there.
Yeah, and I agree. It's absolutely. I mean, security is not sexy. I've always said it all the time. It's
Oh
not
no.
unless you are creating a security product, right? It's not sexy. It's that it's always kind of viewed as that burden or thing you have to do. Nobody wants to do, but it's just. I think the view has changed in the last probably 10 years because there's been so many breaches on different companies. I think people are starting to see we better take a little bit of that VC money and put it in security lockdown. So our cool feature rich product stays up, right? Or stays out there and we don't get a bad rep because something has happened like a data breach. Um, but yeah, you always think about what is the cool sexiness of a product and you don't think about security. But security should be some of the things you don't see. It shouldn't slap you in the face. It should be behind the scenes. But when you click on the app or you put in your credit card information, that is secure. And I think the data breaches, huge data breach with, I'm not going to mention any companies, but there's been a lot here recently in the news. And these companies have the money to secure their products, right? And they're either, and some of them are, just in all fairness, that some of them are just human mistakes, people
Mm-hmm.
mistakes. Something wasn't configured correctly, but some of it is they just didn't put in the time and the funding to lock something down. And it's just, in my opinion, that should be a regular process. I don't care how big or how small you are, is regular security reviews and as well as implementing security at the very beginning.
Like you said, you've been in this game. I've just seen so many people that just take security for granted. And two is,
Yeah,
I don't think there's any reputational risk now to get hacked because everybody gets hacked. So I don't think, unless you a bank or you doing
yeah.
Bitcoin, I think, oh, you just get hacked. We're gonna give you credit monitoring. We're gonna keep it rolling. What's your thoughts on that? That's how I
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
now after a
you
while.
you make a good point until you start seeing some fines, some government fines, and it's really coming down. Now, I will say, in the extreme cases, you start having these a change in the C-suite, right? People, see XOs, see whatever, start losing their jobs. That's really going to push change, right? Because every time you see a breach, somebody's gotten fired. It
Oh,
may be a high level, a low level, and that's really what is the stick to keep people doing because they want to keep their jobs. And the company, though, like I said, they give you credit monitoring for a year. You send that letter saying, "I'm so sorry. Please change your password immediately." We all got that standard stuff, but it's like, where's the feet being held to the fire? Um, and a lot of times it comes down to the accountability down to the executives. And we're starting to see these companies are getting rid of people that have breaches because somebody's got to pay. Now it doesn't help the consumer ultimately, um, but it's just the time. You also think about the dollars that a company spends in remediation. So remediation costs a lot more than proactive services and proactive engagement, right? So you've got a company that spending all this money when they could have spent probably, and I forgot what, I'll say half. I think it's even less than half. If they had spent that proactively, how much more the bottom line is for that company.
yeah, but you think people getting lazy because cyber insurance? Hey, my cyber insurance gonna pick it up. I'm paying my. It's not like I'm trying to wreck my car, but hey, I got a insurance. They gonna pick it up, right? So you think that's helping people get laxed, or you just think people? I just tell people I think
Yeah,
people suck at security. I mean, we've been in this game, so we done on the federal at the high level commercial. So at that level, you got to do it. But I think most businesses, when I go in there, most businesses are sloppy. That they're not used to security at a high level.
yeah. I put it this way. It's a good comparison is we've all seen these the thieves that go into the retail stores and just take the product and walk out the door. Right? There's been a lot of that going on all over the country, unfortunately. Um, those retail companies, until that theft outweighs what they would spend on security and changes to prevent that, it's not going to happen. Any company, any organization is always going to look at what costs less. And right now, a lot of organizations look at, we're not going to spend the money until we have to. And then we have to, we're going to spend just enough to get us back online or get us back to the point of operations. And then we'll take a hit later if we got to take a hit, but we're not going to spend any kind of funding proactively or ahead of time until we absolutely have to. It's a sad reality because they just look at the bottom dollar. They feel like it's cheaper for them to wait till something happens instead of spending that money ahead of time. And a lot of it is and it goes back to all these security job openings, and there's a big void. There's a lot of times, and I think you mentioned it, these companies don't have the skill set. They don't have the people to do all this lockdown and all these controls and security reviews. They don't have it in house. They don't want to pay consultants to come in. So it's one of those things. Well, if it happens, we'll deal with it when it happens. And it's a sad state of affairs, but they are looking at the bottom dollar, which is cheaper, waiting for a security breach or security incident or paying ahead of time to prevent it. That's
No,
my
that's true.
thought. Yeah.
No, what's up, NC Worker? What's up, Style Docs? Thanks for joining us. I got one of my good home. The other part in there, and I get this a lot of times, and I'm sure you get it some too. Um, Especially when you deal with your in-house staff, is it's hard. So me and the developers be going at it. This
Yeah.
is too hard. It's gonna take too long. Do we really need to do it? I'm like, IRS, FISMA, DOD said we got to do this, man. We're already discussing. So you get internal pushback. Then they want
Yeah,
to run it up the chain. Now security's blocking progress.
right,
Right. So
right.
what's your thoughts on that?
Security is not easy. I think a lot of companies have gone through this whole security development life cycle, and really getting with proper DevOps and SecOps and all that stuff. I think starting from the beginning, as opposed to putting security on top of products or bolting it on, is a better way to do it. Unfortunately, you have a lot of legacy products. It is bolt on, or putting that security wrapper around it. However, you still have companies that are producing and developing these products insecure from the beginning.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of developers, they're not tasked. You start putting some kind of goal or some kind of I would say bonus, some kind of incentive on developers to keep your product secure, add security. That's when you're going to start seeing people doing it and streamlining it more in their products. Today is kind of a headache, right? Here comes, as you know, you've been one of those guys walking to the wall. Here comes the security team. Here comes SecOps. I don't deal with them because those developers aren't incentive to do things, securely the right way. So that's kind of come from leadership and up top is driving that culture. We're going to work cooperatively to make things more secure because it benefits everybody in the long run. But that's
Yeah,
got to
but
come
you
from leadership.
yeah, but I think there's a failing because I think when we teach programming, we don't never get to secure programming. So I get with a lot of developers when I start giving OWASP top tens or validation check, they never really even heard of it.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
think it's getting a little better now because of security. So you, especially junior people, it's like I'm talking Spanish, man. So it's just weird. So you think there's an educational gap in there? Because I think we don't teach security because it's hard, right? You don't really do security until you get some a couple years under your belt, 2 or 3 years under your belt.
yeah,
So when you get new people, unless you got um, savvy veterans developers teaching them that, right? So there seems to be a gap because when I do
yeah,
application security, man, my application team, man, we used to go to war, man. We said I had to get the CISO in there, so
yeah.
they getting
Somebody
it.
with some authority,
Yeah, because they pushing back. They're like, "Hey, we can't make these changes. We're gonna have to
Yeah,
re." Because I'm telling them now, you got to rip this crap up, man. You got to do it right. We don't have time. That's gonna cost money. It's not in a
right.
budget. We
Yeah.
short on people, right? So I think there's a little educational gap in there. What's your thoughts on that?
That's true because you think about I don't have a development background, but just dealing with developers on a security side of the table, um, they're focused on building those apps, those products, and those services, and a lot of the education is just focused on that. Security. Now, there's probably a course they could have taken. Well, I know there's courses they could have taken, development courses and secure lifecycle development stuff, but that was let's say an elective. Well, that was an add-on. It wasn't a core function for them to get their degree or get their certification. So I think it's one of those things is just they view it as a nice to have. And until leadership says we're hiring developers that have security backgrounds or do have security certifications or they have shown practically that they've built secure apps or can demonstrate in an interview how do you build these functions and build this application securely, where would you add security? You're going to keep hiring people that just don't have that experience or that knowledge. So it's got to be in the culture of the company, as well as got to be part of the interview process. Um, and then you start seeing dev people make changes and build stuff securely because they know that's a minimum bar for them. But today, there are a lot of interviews I would imagine that don't get into security questions with this company. These across all types of companies because the focus is building the apps and building the products and solutions and not necessarily making it secure.
Yeah. So and two is like DevOps, SecOps. I wouldn't say that's a new trend or a new part of agile, but it seems like only bigger companies are doing it.
Yeah,
Smaller companies are doing it in pieces, but I don't think, especially with the security piece, I don't think they're doing that totality as an agile component for small
right.
business because each one of those things costs money, right? At a high level.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what, like I told before, it comes down to how much money are they going to spend on something. A lot of times, security is at the bottom of that list of what they want to spend money on. Unless there's a breach or unless there's remediation, and they have to. They have to do something.
Right. So, and I was in the government side. That's the cool thing about federal work is they say you have to do these things. So I can always say, if we don't do these things, we can't get ATO, which is authority to operate. So then we
Yeah,
can't get our app out there and get it sold. Right. So that's kind
yeah.
of usually the bad I usually have.
And that's yeah, in your space, in federal space, there are regulations that they've got to meet, and that pushes, and there needs to be more regulations in the commercial side to force companies, because ultimately it's costing the consumer more, it's costing the company more, and ultimately they spend that cost out to who? Their customers and their consumers, right? So I
Nice.
think there needs to be more regulation on the commercial side so that there's less money and time spent on from these as well as these breaches and so forth.
That's true. Let's read this quick question. How do
Yeah.
you go about offering services and configuration to small businesses? Like I said, I don't really see a lot of. I help a few small businesses because they trying to sell at hospitals or do something a little bigger. But usually, small businesses they just really working on features. The one I seen. What's your thought on that on a small business?
Yeah, and I guess the question is it more around
Security? Are you offering security services to small businesses?
is this it talking about am I offering security service or just in general? Because I don't
Just
personally offer security
just in
services.
general. Just in
Oh, in
general. I know
general.
you've been again. Just to talk about it in
Yeah,
general.
I mean, absolutely. I think there's room there, and it just depends on the company. But um, small companies, a lot of times you can help them with security policies, right? Or security procedures if there is a breach or problem. How do you remediate? And doing those types of things, I think is really important. Um, and that is something that they will pay because it's short engagements, it may be a week, a few weeks, and so I think that's a opportunity. You may find yourself you have to really get out there to find those companies that are willing to pay for that. But you think about build a security policy, implementing security policy, remediation plans, and all kind of things. Those are probably things that a small companies would want to do.
No, that's true. Let's
Yeah.
see. Let's see. Thanks for joining us, Paul BC in the house. Let's see who else we got real quick. I knew PBL was going. Yeah, yeah. Sometime, man, we be getting into it, man. So it's all with love, though. It's with love. So, do you like commercial or the federal space? I usually do Fed
Yeah.
space and state
Yeah.
space. I dabble in the commercial. My skill set because I worked at DoD for a large state government. I always kind of been in that Fed space. So.
Yeah. So my career, over the almost 30 years, I have worked in federal, state, and local, commercial, large commercial, small commercial. So I would say my preference right now is large commercial. But I had years at Microsoft. I had many years with federal, the DoD agencies, as well as the civilian agencies, and then I spent quite a bit of time with state and local government. A lot of your larger states. I was engaged, or I ran a team for 5 years, and I ran the federal business and state and local government business for security, and it's just have different challenges. I would say both have challenges, both have
Mhm.
nuances. I think when you're in the federal space and you understand FedRAMP and all the regulations and stuff, if it's HIPAA, whatever side of the business you're on, you can go really deep and can people value your years and years of experience in that space. And I'm from Washington D.C. area, so there you got a lot of people in the federal job. So it's once you get those federal certs and experience, I mean, you gold up there because you got especially you have the security clearance and all that stuff. Um, I find for me commercial, and I'm trying to stay on the quick innovation side.
Mhm, mhm.
Commercials are going to do things faster, right? They
Oh
they
yeah.
they're trying
Mhm.
government. I'll say I'll be careful because government does do transformation and innovation, but it's just
Mhm.
at a slower pace than commercial. Commercial trying to be a lot of times the company's trying to be shiny new thing. They
Mhm,
want
mhm.
they want to have all the cool stuff. So you're going to have a little bit more progress there. But you also have a large company that they're very slow too. They don't want to make any changes. I've had companies tell me this is how we've always done it, and they're
Mhm.
profitable. They don't want to change it. They don't see any point in changing anything. Every year they make, the revenue is going up and they're making money, but they don't want to be on the cutting edge or take any risk. But I just
Mhm.
find in general commercial are more apt to transformation, and a lot of times the technology cycle is shorter.
No, I agree with that. Like you said, feds are usually behind because they wanted to bend, in something that's a tried and true for 5 years before they even want to try it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so no, I definitely agree with that.
And just to add, not to step on federal or the large government agency, but when they do something, it's usually at a very big scale. And if you're there
Mm,
for that big implementation, that experience is invaluable. You're talking about some of the largest deployments of different, even
yeah.
cloud technologies, are on your government agencies. So you're there implementing. You get that experience, and that's kind of what I did. A lot of my experience was in government agencies, and then you take that over to smaller organizations, and you can just shine in the commercial
Oh,
world. And you don't have the red tape and all stuff, but you gain that experience with the government agencies, local or federal, and I think that's still invaluable.
oh yeah, yeah. Like you said, because I've been in that space. You're right. When we do something, it's big. It's like we doing this 5 cluster big thing, right?
Yeah, that's right.
A, at a huge scale. So that's the
Yeah,
cool thing. So let me
yeah.
slide down and wrap it up because I know you got a hard stop. So
This
let's
has been
see
good.
what
I've enjoyed it. Good questions. You got a good audience, good viewers too.
appreciate. Yeah, we. I've been doing this for about now, so I got my tried and true strong. They all time I come on, I know anytime. So
Nice.
let's see. So what is your goals for 2023? Since 2022 is ending, man. What you think you're gonna try to do in 2023? What moves you trying to make?
2023. One, stay healthy, right? You can't even you can't take that for granted these days. Stay healthy. You want the
Man.
family to stay healthy. Continue to stay. I feel like I have been blessed with a good career and good family. So, want to keep those things going well. And just I want to definitely uh, help more organizations with the transformation, in the cloud. Like my focus now in this current role is security and other things. So, helping some of these organizations and just kind of a blockbuster transformation with the organization and see them really move the needle on their business, and having to be a part of that is always a nice thing to see. And that's those are some of my career goals, is being able to be impactful with these organizations around the technology that I currently represent. And it's there's nothing more satisfying with one of your customers comes to you and says, "Hey, we got this business problem. Can you help me solve it?" And you outline and pull in the right resources, pull a lot of people smarter than me, and put the team together and drive and see them happy and successful, and overcome that issue. That's those kind of things I like now. In my career, I'm past kind of the break and fix part. I started in that support world, and even the architecture and layout and design. This part of it is what I'm doing right now, is solving business problems with cloud technology.
So yeah, I've been doing a lot more compliance. I'm thinking about going back to engineering, but man, that them support tickets to get called at night. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't miss carrying the pager, carrying the cell phone, or that on-call life. Yeah, I paid my dues in those
Yeah, man.
days.
So
Yeah.
that compliance stuff, I make sure it's good and check off. Then y'all handle the engineering and support part. So, but I
You
don't
don't
know.
have
I've
you
been
don't have to implement it. You're the rules and compliance
yeah,
guy. You lock it down. Say, okay, now you go do what I'm
yeah.
telling you to do. Yeah,
You
that's
know
good.
how we do it. We go through and double. This encryption don't look right. I think I need you to tighten up a little bit. We need some FIPS.
Right.
Get some double encryption. We need some FIPS 140-2 encryption.
Yeah.
So nah, that's good. You got any last words? I know you was trying to get out of here, so I want to make sure I was respectful to your time. We
Yeah,
probably
I
do it
appreciate it.
again
Yeah.
next month and talk a little bit more about sales because that's real big. We talk about people getting into sales engineering. You can eat well on that getting parts of themselves, man. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's a little known, I think, area that if people think about getting technology, think about
mhm.
dev jobs or engineering and those types of roles, which nothing wrong with that. But I think they overlook or not aware of that. I've been in technical sales now, probably the last 15 years. I went from a very technical engineering role to moving over. So I'd be honest with you, I made the change because I saw sales was getting treated better, right? So
Oh
I said,
yeah, man.
let me see how sales go. But
I,
I've always been in technical sales, so it's not just a role where you are just managing a relationship, but you got to know the technology. You just don't know it as deeply as an
right.
engineer, and that's what I was alluding to, bringing in the right resources because, I can go to a certain level, but then I've got to bring in other people to talk further. But that sales side of it has fed my family very well over
Yeah.
the years. And you also, you're having a different conversation with the
Yep.
leadership of a company. So you actually are, you know, talking about what the product can do, what the solution can do. You're not there when something doesn't work because that's somebody else is dealing with that, but you're kind of on the happy side of the business. But I love to come back and talk about just tech sales. It's something that I'm going to launch a channel, me and a partner for mine to really help people to learn more about that side of it and some of the benefits of it.
Yeah, when you launch it, I get both of y'all back on, and I could definitely introduce you my
Oh
audience,
yeah,
and I can introduce some, my little team on YouTube, so we can get you
absolutely.
moving in the right direction, get you monetized, so you can get barbecue like PB on Sunday, get your barbecue tips, we can do a little barbecue on Sunday.
Yeah, it's been a while since we broke bread. It's
Yeah,
been
man.
a
Shout
long
out to him.
time.
He
Yeah.
bought me my first Kobe steak because he had the big. He helped
that
PBO out with the Kobe beef. We broke
and
bread, so shout out to
yeah,
that.
that's a story for another
Yeah,
webcam, but that was funny. That I'll never forget that. Yeah, I'll never
we have to talk about that. Little girl hurt my feelings. That's all I'm gonna say. She hurt my feelings. That's all I'm gonna say. But I'm gonna let you
forget.
get out of here. I know you had another meeting at 6, man. Like I said, I'll be respectful. I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna go through with the rest of the questions with my audience, and we're gonna link back up.
Sounds good. Good. Always good to see you, my friends. Keep it safe and stay successful. Appreciate it. And good to
I
meet
appreciate
everybody.
it, man.
Thank
All right.
y'all. All right. Bye bye.
I'll chat to you later, man. This is my band, my Google homie. So we definitely gonna have him back on, do some stuff. I was gonna go over the rest of your questions. Like I said, I'm starting to bring some of my I ain't gonna call them big hitters, but he actually, works at Google in tech sales. Shout out, that's a Black Heights genre. But I'm thinking about it getting tech sales. I help him bring in and make a lot of money, man. He was getting percentages. I did get a Kobe steak. I needed a check though. Nah, but shout out to him. So I'm gonna bring those guys more onto the channel. I got a Splunk sales associate coming on that I worked with in the past. So I'm gonna start bringing those guys on so we can have good conversations. But now, shout out to Ty. I would like to own my own company, but I feel like the services I want to offer would take me years to build sets on. I started my first company at 29, Ty, so it doesn't take a lot. It was a niche company. I was actually doing some. It's called Quick Basic for insurance company. So as you get skills, it doesn't have to be the whole company. Your company can just niche on and do a certain niche. So I did Quick Basic, and I partnered with some other smaller companies, and we were doing bigger contracts. So now I wouldn't forget your desire too, because in a company like my man, he just told you right there, you're gonna bring on other resources to help you do those deeper dives, anything, right? You can't do everything in a company, Ty. So now I would just keep grinding, and if you're gonna launch something, just get to a certain skill set, focus on that, and partner with other people, right? I do compliance in certain part of security. People call me and ask me to come and help them for a different part, right? When I freelance, or if I ever start my own company, I would just focus on compliance and partner with other people, right? So shout out to Scorpio. Thanks for joining. Do it, tie facts, facts. Truly good game right here. How it develops with security. Yeah, I think that's the future, and I think they're going to start teaching that more and more in school. And two is, I think a lot of the programming languages are building up security inside their programming language to begin with, so it makes it easier to do secure coding. So, um, shout out to Chaos Rain. Thanks for joining. We're trying to get the bag. You guys retire. Hey, it's plenty of bag. We don't need to retire, JM. There's plenty of bags out here to get. I want you to get the bag while I get the bag. You don't have to wait for us to retire. Like I said, he worked for another billion-dollar company. They were coming in, and I was working at a large state agency, so I had to do the security review on the product they were bringing in. And I'm going to start doing those on channel because I think GRC is governance, risk, and compliance, and what do you look like when a vendor brings a product in? How do you review it? How do you review it for risk? How do you write it up with some templates, right? So that's a little known gem that a lot of people do risk. Let's see. With more companies getting hacked, is the push for software developers to know how to secure code like DevOps. I think that's the push, but probably like we talked about before, is most companies only worried about their services and features, right? Because that's how you make money. Nobody thinks about security till you get hacked, right? So you trying to get the next feature. You make money on features on software, right? Really not security. So I want to move from medical to cell engineering, big bro. You can do that, man. Check out my man. He's gonna come back and Black Heights. Check my man out. I work with him. He's got a course on that. But you could do that because HIPAA sells a lot. There's HIPAA software. So if you got medical software that goes to hospitals, got to be HIPAA compliant. A lot of hospitals buy them. I think one is called Epic. That's one of the big where you take um, customers, that come in for the hospitals called Epic, getting that sold to a hospital and get it stood up and implemented. A lot of people make money on Epic. That's big time, big time. Bring the brother back. He was a bunch. Oh yeah. Shout out to him. Like I said, we chopped it up a number of times. So yeah, he definitely coming back. We're gonna talk more about sales in this next one. Like I said, he brought a product in. I was doing a review. So that's how we got cool. I was I was tearing them up. Now, if I want to get on a Zoom call, yeah, we can definitely do that. Professor Black Ops at gmail.com. Scorpio, just reach out to me. We definitely do a Zoom. Actually, to be restreamed, we just won't be live. It's the same thing. So we can definitely chop it up. I definitely give you 15, 30 minutes, no problem. Yeah, fam. Oh yeah. My daughter-in-law is trying to get in. She does Epic entering, so I'm trying to get her in the Epic software. Reach out, we'll chop it up. There was a young black lady that was on. I don't know if it was before the billions. She was talking about Epic and how to get in software sales for Epic. So shoot me an email and I'll find that link out to her because I shot one to my daughter-in-law. I'm trying to get her to get in the Epic. Get her in the Epic on the software side. How many years experience do you think you need to move into an architect role? 3 or 4, depending on the size of company. Now, when I say 3 or 4, you got to be deep involved, right? A lot of times, which I think is crazy, they want you to have 7 to 10. I think that's overkill. If you know your stuff and you're really good at it. Once again, I think you need to get your big boy certs. If you got 3 or 4, you need to get a. If you're in AWS, you're gonna need your professional architects, your professional series. There's professional architect and professional DevOps in AWS. That's the one. Azure has their version of that. So you would have to get one of those higher level certs. But I think Black Dub, if you get 3 or 4 and you get immersed, the problem is you got to get in a company that helps you so you can see that spinning that stuff up. So that's kind of what I've been kind of working with AWS, trying to really work on my large architect skills, right? How do you have a multi account? How do you have, it's called AWS organization, right? So how do you set up an organization? Because usually when you say an architect, usually you working for a big company, right? So when you say architect, I'm thinking you working for a large organization or an organization that sells something big, even though if the organization was not live, right? Even though you got architects and small companies, they usually don't call them architects. Usually when you talk about architects, right, you got like 30 developers, DevOps, SecOps, right? Essays, right? So you got that whole thing usually when I think of architect. But no, I think if you get 3, 4, get your big boy search and really get at it, you can do it. No, it's all good. Just buy me a little barbecue, man. I'm trying to give back. So yeah, we'll make it work. But yeah, reach out to me. If you go to my channel, to my emails on there too. Just reach out. I need to check my email. I'm bad about checking my email. But so let's see what else I had on. But yeah, so that's the kind of people I'm gonna bring on. I got 3 or 4 more people lined up. I got a CISO coming on. Tony Chu. He's used to work for NSA. He's gonna come on. My homie came back on. I call him Tiny, even though he's about 6'8", 400. He's got a CISP, works for a large state agency. Super bright guy. So so we gonna up the caliber. Shout out to B2B. I think he set the bar pretty high. He was bringing on Microsoft architects, so I had to keep up with B2B. He was making it happy. Um, so yeah, I'm glad you, like I said, I worked with him when he worked at Google. And I never like to say his old company. I just say another $1 billion company. He did say he worked at Microsoft, so he worked at $3 billion company. So he's really about that security life. Like I said, when I met him, we were really chopping it up. And I did a security review. One of my other homies gonna come on, Jan Bond. Security extraordinaire. We did it together, right? So we're gonna bring him on. He's actually a security architect. I wouldn't put mine in there. My email skills. Yeah, I need to do better. It's not my email skills. I just be all over the place sometimes. I need to put that in my rotation of things to do. 2022 was a little rough on me, so I'm trying to get 2023 starting in a much better spot for me. But all in all, man, I can't complain. But so once again, that was my man coming from Google. Talked about his background, talked about getting to the cloud. I had 20 questions. We only went over 10. We start going all over the place. But once again, super knowledgeable guy. When I have big issues, that's one of the guys I reach out to, especially Google. Sometimes if somebody asks me, I can do the security work of Google, but if I need something explicitly security check for Google, I'm gonna reach out to my man right there and double check with him, right? Because he works at Google, right? So it's one of my resources I reach out to. Even though I've been in the game for 30 years, you got to be able to reach out to people. And shout out to Black Heights and Textual Chatter and Women in Linux. You got to get your network together, right? Even at my age, I'm old. I'm supposed to have a network, right? So you got to have a network of people you can reach out to and ask various questions or get help, right? One of my other ex homies, he actually works for AWS. I didn't know he was. I think he's a senior architect, so he's got to get approval from AWS to come on. So he's trying to get approval. I got to reach out to him again. So he's got to get written approval for AWS before he just shows up on the show. So I'm gonna try to get him on. So super bright guy, right? So I need to reach out to him because I be getting stuck on some of my labs. So I'm like, ooh, that didn't quite work the way I anticipated it. So shout out to Melissa Jane. I forgot to send her a shout out. Thanks for joining. Oh yeah, I always got to show. I always got to show the women in Linux love. Oh yeah. Like I said, yeah, Epic under the hospital side. Once again, my data laws does that from patient intake. I'm trying to get to software sales, right, for Epic for that. So she's trying to get into that, and I shot her some remote jobs today. So that's my goal, to try to get her into software sales. I probably get her into Black Heights Patreon, and I probably get her. Like I said, one young lady, she has some training for Epic. I'm gonna look that up so I can push that out to my community. But look, you're right, Epic in the hospital. I used to do HIPAA work on the side. Shout out to Citizen Lou, digital nomading. So if you want to freelance and make a little paper, so I used to do a lot of HIPAA work, high trust. So that's kind of where I became associated with Epic and doing that type of work. Once again, I do GRC compliance, and one of that is doing security reviews as part of GRC. One of the big things this year is vendor risk and supply chain risk. Because Kaseya's got hacked, and Americans didn't have gas on the East Coast. So checking your vendors to make sure they don't get you hacked is high priority in 2022 and in 2023. So that's one of the duties of my job, is doing vendor assessment, and part of that assessment is the risk of, should we take this vendor and work with vendors to make sure they can pass the security review and use their product with the client I work for, right? A lot of times my client says, we want them, make it happen, right? So my job is to make sure they can pass the security check, work with them, make sure their paperwork is all right. sometimes my job is to assist them and even their programming staff, right? So they can get their software into my clients so they can use it. So once again, TGIF, I'm shutting it down. Come check me out Wednesday. We're gonna do a little AWS. I think we're doing KMS, which is key management system, which is how you do encryption and make sure nobody can steal your data or listen at it over the wire. Once again, reach out to me at professorblackops@gmail.com. I'll make sure I look at my email. Usually I'd be like 3 days behind. I gotta do better. That's one of my goals for 2023. Do a little better on that. Everybody have a thanks for joining me. We're gonna do it again. Like I said, I'm gonna have my man back. He's super smart. Like I said, I love hanging around smart people. Everybody have a nice day. I'm